Hi, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. It is great to see so many familiar names on the attendee list. And I want to welcome actually all of our clients amongst you viewers, some of you who actually helped us build the capability that we want to talk about today, being our testers and early adopters. So thank you very much for that. But of course, we also welcome those who never heard of us or never attended any of our webinars. Welcome as well. This year is kind of tough for us digital marketers, isn't it? We've seen the sunset of third-party cookies, although we're going to see how that is going to develop after the what Google has said and published 2 days ago, and we can maybe talk a little bit about it later. Then we have stricter and stricter cookie content regulations and policies, less and less data coming out of conventional measurement tools like GA4. Cross-device, still a huge problem. Everybody talking about future-proofing. Well, we hear you, and we have been working actually quite hard over the past couple quarters to come up with a good solution to help you out with all of these thorny issues. So it is our goal that at the end of today's session, or at least my personal goal, you will be able to sigh at least a slight sigh of relief. Today, we want to talk about our new MTA capability in the area of measurement and path stitching. We're going to walk you through what new features and methodologies we have adopted so that you can measure more data more reliably and so that you can connect even more cross-device journeys together than before. To do that, I have today with me the two best people for this job. Our client partner, Jan Kolka, who has been on your, meaning client side, hearing and dealing with all of these new pains on a daily basis. And he's here mostly to accurately articulate the issues on your behalf. And then we have Milan Knapp, our head of product, who represents the tech side of things today, talking about how the new solutions are working behind the scenes. We will have about 25 to 30 minutes for the presentation, and then at the end, we will take your questions. You can submit them already or anytime during the presentation via the Zoom Q&A widget. And as I said, we'll take them at the end. All right, gentlemen, now the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Pavel, very much for the introduction and for setting the stage for our discussion. What I would like to start with are the client challenges. From what I had a chance to observe, the clients face several obstacles every day that make their jobs increasingly difficult. One major issue is understanding the complete customer journey, meaning they can track users as they switch between platforms on a single device, like a phone or laptop. However, the moment they switch to a different device, such as moving from a phone to, let's say, a computer, they lose a track of their journey. And this disconnection makes it nearly impossible to build an accurate picture of how their behavior across multiple devices looks like. Another truth is that clients currently measure only something about 60 to 70% of all website traffic, meaning that there is still a huge portion of website visitors which is not tracked at all. And last but not least, the clients are very much concerned regarding the removal of third-party cookies, which results in the inability to evaluate upper funnel campaigns. It is also worth to mention that the latest news that Google announced it won't abandon third-party cookies after all. However, the truth is that even in spite of that, less people will have third-party cookies in Google Chrome as they will do the change to ask the users about the cookie preference, which will decrease the ratio of collected cookies compared to the current approach when third-party cookies are allowed by default. And it is also worth mentioning that it is not definitely putting third-party cookies back to other browsers. So, for example, US, where large part of the population uses Safari, will not be affected and the cookies are still very unreliable. Having explored the challenges the digital marketers encounter, I would like to shift our focus on the solutions. And to elaborate on this, I will now hand over to Milan.
Thanks, Jan. Hi, everyone. I would like to talk today about what we have developed to actually tackle those the challenges Honza has mentioned. And I'm going to talk about the Roivenue measurement and path stitching, which is a completely new methodology we are now using. First of all, about the Roivenue measurement, that's something you might know already for about a year, but we improved it. So to actually explain what it is, it's a website tracking similar to Google Analytics, but it also supports the impression tracking from your platforms, mainly from your DSPs. And the new thing is that we added anonymous tracking, which is a special mode in which the cookies are not being collected. We will get to the details later on about the impressions, about the anonymous mode, etc. But now a bit more information about how it works in general. You implement the necessary part, which is the website tracking, through your Google Tag Manager or directly to your website, potentially server side if desired as well. And it's up to you to choose how you would like to track your users. You can track some groups of users fully, which means including cookies and all the parameters. You can track in the anonymous mode, which collects no cookies and uses only some of the parameters. And then you can also choose who should be excluded completely from tracking. And then there is the optional part, which allows you to insert third-party pixel from Roivenue into any of your ads in platforms which supports that, and track the impressions together with those website visits, and we will combine them into one later on. I think I have a slide about it a bit later, but now we would like to tell you about the path stitching, which is the newest thing, the greatest. It's an algorithm how we are actually combining the data we measure using our Roivenue measurement, because traditionally you are using only the collected cookies to combine the touch points into a customer journey. But with changing devices, very often customers are creating journeys which are more difficult to track. And that's where the path stitching comes in, actually. It's an algorithm which uses all the parameters we collect, which you can imagine as cookies, but also as IP address, a location, information about the browser, etc. And also behavior on the site, of course, that applies only for the website tracking. And what we do with all those data points is we deploy a machine learning algorithm to actually recognize which of those touch points have been done by the same user. So if I will be, for example, buying shoes somewhere and I do it on my phone, I will choose everything. I will know the size. I will know which brand, which color, and so on. And I just take the link and open it on my computer and finish the purchase. In the traditional cookie-based tracking, those two would be completely disparate journeys. The first one on mobile, which didn't end in a conversion, and then a direct visit from a computer, which immediately purchased the shoes. In our case, we would actually recognize some patterns in the behavior. That's, for example, someone started a completely new journey on the desktop and immediately went to this specific type of shoes. And it would recognize that just some time before that, someone in a similar location actually searched for this and ended their interaction in that same shoes. So in the end, we would join those interactions together. So that's in a nutshell how it works. And I think Honza has something more for you regarding some data, how good it actually is.
Yeah, thank you, Milan, for describing the methodology. I would also like to share some of the results this solution has already generated in case of some of our clients. On this chart, you can see that into the 393 converting journeys out of altogether 2037, we always added one path that was non-converting. That means that 393 users completed some conversion journey, and we were able to add one more non-conversion journey to each and every one of them. Similarly, to 132 converting journeys, we added 2 non-converting journeys. To 51 converting journeys, we added 3 non-converting journeys, and so on and so on. Apart from that, I have a question on you, Milan, that I believe many clients would also be very curious about. If I come across an ad on my phone while I am, let's say, in France, and subsequently I come across the same ad from my laptop while I am, for instance, in Germany, is it still possible to connect these two paths even though my location is different in these two different countries?
That's a good question. And the short answer is that it is possible, but it's very, very difficult. And in many cases, it probably wouldn't happen because it's a probabilistic model. We need some reasonable amount of those parameters to be the same or similar to actually recognize the two touch points as being from the same customer. So if you use different devices in completely different locations, it's very likely you will not be able to recognize you are the same person because that's just not possible from the data. There are ways how to do it, but typically businesses with high ratio of users which are logging in could pass their user IDs. And then, of course, you have much more reliable way how to combine all those touch points into one. But that's very business specific.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you, Milan. And I'd like to hand it over back to you.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to share a bit more about all 3 options for tracking. This basically gives you more options how to set up the tracking for maximum user privacy and maximum amount of collected data. You can freely choose on the level of each visitor if they will be tracked fully, which means you will collect all the parameters, you are going to collect cookies as well, etc. Everything is normal. And then there is the new one, the anonymous mode, where no cookies are actually used. And only parameters which the user already shared with the platform, with your website, are used for measurement. And of course, the third one is you still have the option to exclude anyone you want from the tracking. So it actually depends on you how you structure this.
Yes, as an example to this, I would like to demonstrate the results on a case study. As you can see, the client we selected measured only 60% of all visits via their GA4, as you can see on the dark blue column. However, thanks to our anonymous measurement, they were able to detect even 92% of users, of all users, which we believe is a great result, as is shown by the red column. And I also believe that clients would be interested whether this approach is legally compliant, as such cases are usually on the borderline of the privacy requirements. And we have taken all necessary measures to ensure the compliance with GDPR and e-privacy regulation. And we consider the way how we are receiving, processing, and deleting data from you in line with current legal EU practice. Now, I would like to turn it back over to Milan in order to describe the methodology, how we measure impressions via the Roivenue measurement.
Yeah, sure. This is very easy, I would say, because we already provide the website tracking script. We also provide a Roivenue pixel, which you can insert into every creative you would like to track. And what we do is we collect a similar set of information every time someone from your audience actually sees an impression. So when impression is served, we actually collect information like the device info, location, etc. Some of those cannot be passed because you can collect them only when the user visits your website, but it provides enough information that we can actually match those impressions into customer journeys without the need for third-party cookies. So that's actually good, but taking into account the recent change in what Google is planning to do, if we have those third-party cookies available, we of course utilize them as well. So if something is matching based on the third-party cookie, only good. But in cases they are not available, this solution can actually work quite well without them. And on the topic of which platforms you can track like this, it's basically all platforms which allows third-party pixels to be inserted. Typically, you should have a problem with any DSP.
And to demonstrate this case even further, here is an example of how we enabled effective tracking without cookies for one of our clients. On this chart, you can see the comparison of revenue from DSP platforms such as Adform, DV360, and so on, when evaluating only clicks, as you can see on the left dark blue column, versus when impressions are also tracked. And as you can see, the revenue has increased 30 times, which we believe is again a great result. And Milan, you mentioned that for the purpose of measuring impressions, we inject tracking pixels into creatives on the platforms. However, it's important to note that there are multiple media channels that do not offer this option at all. And these platforms, often referred to as walled gardens platforms that include Meta, TikTok, Snapchat, Pinterest, and so on, they are specific in a way that they don't share impression level data per user and do not allow integration of any third-party tracking pixels. That means that evaluating display activities on these platforms has been practically impossible for a very long time. And at Roivenue, however, we introduced a solution to this problem last year, which we refer to as synthetic impression attribution. And since this approach has been met with a great success among our clients, I would like to hand it over back to you to explain a little bit further this methodology.
Sure. Yeah, as you said, it's a methodology we have already introduced, I think, February 2023, but since then, I think it was better than we even expected. It was adopted by almost everyone in our customer base and was actually met with very positive feedback. And how it works is we actually download the most granular data available from each of those platforms. I cannot say what exactly the data set looks like because it's different for each platform, but typically it should be some combination of campaign, ad group, and creative level together with the most granular time, either day or hour split possible. We combine those and we get a granular report from the platform about what conversions they are reporting for themselves. And we use this data to actually match them with the Roivenue measurement and see if we are seeing such conversion in that period as well. So when Facebook is actually claiming a conversion of $100 between 1 and 2 p.m., we check that time period in our data to check if there is such conversion. And if so, we actually create a synthetic touch point for that given platform. And actually, if it's claimed by multiple platforms, which can happen, for example, when you target the same person on Meta as well as on TikTok, we actually create 2 of those synthetic touch points and we both insert them into the already existing click level customer journey. And then those touch points can get the exactly same credit during the attribution calculation process. So that is how it works, more or less.
All right, so thank you guys very much for the presentation. And now is the time to take the questions. So we already have some questions here, so let me see. So the first one is whether Roivenue measurement can be blocked by ad blockers, and Andrew is asking. So I think Milan, if you can take this one.
Sure. It's actually a good question because Roivenue cannot be blocked by ad blockers because the data is actually collected on the client's domain. So if the client would be Nike, it would be tracking on their subdomain. And the ad blocker is actually not able to recognize that it's actually tracking code to be blocked because they work in a way that they are looking for Google Analytics tags, etc., and they are blocking those, but Roivenue would still measure.
All right, thank you for clarifying. Another question is from Nico, and she's asking, how long does it typically take to set up Roivenue measurement, when we can expect to see first results? Additionally, will we need assistance from IT during the setup process?
Okay, so how to implement it? I think it's pretty straightforward, especially if you have Google Tag Manager already implemented on your website, which I assume is majority of our clients and majority of the viewers as well. In such case, there is like a step-by-step instructions what to implement. And anyone who is managing your Google Tag Manager can do it. So if you are like a web analyst, you can implement it yourself. Of course, if you don't have it, you will need to implement it directly on your website, and you need to ask for assistance anyone who is managing the website. So that would be the first part of the question. And to the second one, how long does it take? It actually depends on the business. We typically say between 2 to 4 weeks. But if you have a shorter sales cycle, it can be sooner. And of course, vice versa. And if there was a third part, I don't remember it.
Okay, I think that was good enough. So Sarah is asking, can Roivenue AI attribution be higher than channel or platform attribution?
I would say yes. It depends on the platform and what you have implemented into the platform. In the case of synthetic impressions, I would say no, because those are typically platforms which claim quite a lot of revenue, like Facebook. So the typical result would be somewhere in between of what standard last click attribution would say and what the channel would say. But if you have the impression tracking done by the Roivenue Pixel, you can actually have platforms not counting anything to themselves, or you can just set it up that way. And Roivenue can stitch journeys together in a way more credit is claimed. But overall, I would say the typical result would be somewhere in between the last click attribution and what channels are actually reporting.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is it's typically indeed in the middle. And the platform attribution is still overshooting quite high from our results. That's what we typically see. Okay, then there is a bunch of questions that are similar in nature, and they're basically asking, so I'm just gonna read one of these. And it's all around how we can be sure that the behavior will be basically dedicated to the correct tracking path, and how is it accurate, and how are we testing the accuracy? So that is coming from Hanka, that is also coming from Navneet. So from a bunch of people, same question basically. How are we sure that the matching works, and then how are we checking that?
Okay, I think that's a very good question. We, of course, are never sure 100% in like real life situations, but because we were aware of this, that it's important to have this working reliably, we did actually quite a lot of testing. And what we have done during the testing process first is we did like the withhold groups where we actually know the cookies, so we would be able to stitch the journeys together using cookies, but we actually do not provide it to the model, and we actually checked in what percentage of cases it can actually stitch them correctly. So that was the first step, and based on this, we then create an option for each user or even for each website if desired, or each attribution model, to set up a different level of confidence at which you would like to stitch the journeys together. Basically, the lowest you can go is 50%. So someone who says, yeah, I don't really care all that much about the best possible accuracy, I would like to add more, and I'm willing to take the risk. We will stitch some incorrect touch points into the journey as well. They could go for 50%, and we will be able to match quite a lot of non-converting journeys into the converting journeys. But if you want to play it super safe, you can actually go to 90 or even 95% if desired. And we will stitch way less touch points, but only in cases we are almost certain those are the same person.
Right. So if I'm getting it correctly, basically, there's never 100% certainty, and that is not even the point because it's a probabilistic method. But we have checked sort of the reliability on a training data set, and we withheld some information. We trained this data set and we checked that it's correct. And then the client can also set up sort of how reliably he wants the model to run. And based on that, we can stitch more journeys or less journeys.
Yeah, that's correct. And actually, we have done it in a way that if someone is interested to run those in parallel, to have one model which matches it on 50% and other one which does it on 90, that's actually possible.
Cool. All right. Another question from Christina. What is the pricing for the solution? So that's maybe on you, Jan.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for asking that. Our pricing policy is based on a number of sessions and the number of impressions. So what I would suggest is to visit our website, roivenue.com, and I believe all clients will find all important and relevant information in there. So yeah.
Cool. Another question is from Dipesh. When are you measuring the path to conversion? Are you basing the conversions that's recorded from AdWords, Meta, GA, etc., or would you require backend sales data with timestamp?
I would say neither of the two is correct. Because we do not require the backend data, while it's possible to add them, but we also do not require the data from platforms, because what we require is the Roivenue measurement to be implemented on the website. So when the conversion happens, when someone comes to the website and makes a purchase or fills in a lead, it doesn't need to be a purchase necessarily. The Roivenue measurement will measure this event and will send it to our servers. So that's when we recognize the conversion has happened. And on that topic, I will also mention that you can set up multiple conversion goals in Roivenue measurement. So if you may have multiple steps in some funnel, or you have one main conversion, like a purchase, and then multiple micro conversions, you can actually track all of them with Roivenue.
Okay. So no backend data needed, but we need the Roivenue measurement and then also basically access to the data from the platforms. But that, I guess, is kind of obvious. All right, then we have two questions. They're all, again, similar in nature from somebody whose name is not really legible, but the question is basically around whether we have any details, how it works with GDPR, because the clients would be interested to know. And the second question, sub-question here is whether Roivenue tracking is implemented only for upper funnel campaigns or also for Google Ads search campaigns.
Okay, good. So Roivenue measure, I will start with the second one because I think that will be faster. Roivenue measurement on the website that tracks all the users, no matter from which campaigns or sources they are coming from. So no matter who visits your website, we will track them. And on the topic of impression tracking, that actually makes sense rather for the upper funnel activities, because those are typically ones where there are not many clicks happening. The users mainly see the banner or a video, but they maybe come later, or majority of them, of course, never come, but some of them do. And it's good to know who was it and that it influenced them. So it's actually up to you where you implement the impression tracking, but in general, it's designed mainly for display platforms, which are typically more upper funnel. And
But I think the answer is we can track and attribute both clicks and impressions, but the methodologies to do it are different.
yes, that's true. And then on the topic of GDPR, I think that's always best to discuss like the details with clients one-on-one if they have like some specific concerns. But in general, Roivenue should be implemented and was designed with GDPR in mind basically all the time. So you can manage exactly based on the consents you have from the users. You can manage and choose yourself in real time if to track them fully, if to track them cookieless, or if to exclude them. And we even implemented ways how to inform us basically in real time about a change in this. So if you decide to track someone cookieless, and then you would like to change to a full mode, including cookies, just a quick update in the data layer on the website will allow this, and vice versa. If you are tracking someone and then for whatever reason you don't want them to track anymore, just with changing one parameter in the Roivenue measurement, it can happen in real time. So you can always track in a compliant way.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the important point. You can always be compliant, and that, you know, we as Roivenue, we are not going to track anything you don't want to track, right? So it's basically however the GDPR is set up within your company, then we are also basically taking that setup and just implementing it technically. But I think that's the important point. Okay, another question. Is Roivenue integrated with HubSpot or Salesforce? So maybe I can answer this one. It is not, and the simple reason is that we are mostly focused on B2C, and they would typically have different kind of backend systems than HubSpot or Salesforce. However, it is not impossible to make a data bridge, basically, or some sort of export from these systems as well. So again, it would be probably best to talk in detail about exactly what you need or what the specific client's need is. So happy to talk more offline. All right, I think we have a last question again about consent. So do I need to have, from anonymous attendee, do I need to have consent to collect cookies like in case of GA4?
I would say yes, that's basically what GDPR is saying, that to place cookies, you should have a consent from a user. So yeah, as it's one of the directives, that's how Roivenue measurement works as well.
Cool. So that were all the questions. And I think before we part ways, there would be good to do just a very short recap in terms of takeaways. And so I think if you should walk away today with just a handful of takeaways, I think it would be good if it would be these three. So number one is how you can actually collect more data using either our anonymous measurement or even not using that, and sort of transition into a cookie, post-cookie reality, whether that happens fully with Google or not, or partially. This solution is ready for you to adapt to that reality. Number two is that how you can actually measure view-through conversions and impressions, because that is really important for your upper funnel. And there are two ways to do it. So either it is via placing the tracking pixel into your ads, tracking in the DSPs and so-called open platforms, or within the walled gardens setting, using our synthetic impressions methodology to achieve basically the same outcome. And then third, taking all of these additional and new data points that our measurement and modeling capabilities are providing, and use them to stitch even more journeys that in the data set at a first glance are looking or appearing disparate, and putting them together into single customer journeys that are a better representation of the real life journeys that your customers are actually making across different devices. And with that, thank you very much for your time, for spending the hour today with us. We wish you a great rest of the day and see you sometimes again. Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure to be here. So have a great day, everyone.
Thank you too. Have a nice day.